So here we have the second lord falling into the 11th house. Now, the second lord is kind of square to its own natural natal house here. What Parashara tells us about this yoga, Parashara is the original rishi who scratched out so much of what became Vedic astrology. Parashara tells us that the wealth lord, the second lord, abiding in the gain bhava, we have someone who is fully endowed with all gains, high in assemblies, esteemed and praised by the people. Fully endowed with all gains, so the 11th house is a house of gains, and the second lord needs to have the abundance mindset to really gain those things. The 11th house can be a very tricky house. So ultimately, though, Parashara is telling us that this is a positive, good thing happening here that will usually end up being okay. But every planetary position can have its positives and negatives. In this case, what we really can see can happen is that the person deeply desires to have all gains endowed to them. They want to be high in assemblies. They want to be esteemed and praised by the people. And it might be that desire, that the jealousy of others that can cause them to be heart-stricken when they can't get it. And this is what the person with the second lord in the 11th house has to kind of watch out for. Of course, as usual with all these positions of the second house, everything that happens in the second house can be worked out through looking at your childhood psychology. It's like, what did your parents do or not do that gave you the sick feeling of, I absolutely need to be on top of everybody, to shine, to accomplish a million things, to gain all my heart's desires, because if I don't gain them, I'm going to get frustrated that I haven't gained them yet. The thing about the 11th is that it's considered one of the most inauspicious house. This is Vedic astrology leaning on understanding the uselessness of material acquisition in the long run of things. When there's material acquisition at the expense of self-alignment and self-realization, the acquisition is just a waste of time. And planets in the 11th tend to have this sweet tooth, this desire to get the biggest and best gains that I can out of life. And nothing is ever enough at some level. But if things are well placed, if there's benefics in the second or the second or the 11th, the 11th has, I should have kind of looked this up before jumping into it. Each house has what's called karakas. The planetary karakas are important dimensions of the houses. So each house has these karakas, these key planets that work out the specific nature of the house. And the karaka for the 11th is, of course, Jupiter, as well as the second house. The second house has Jupiter for its karaka as well. I'm glad that these are, there's another Ryan Kirkzak book that has all the karakas for the houses written down there. So Jupiter is very important for this position, for this yoga. If you got the second lord in the 11th and your Jupiter is absolutely trash, then two things can happen. Number one, you might not have, it's tricky with any placement of the 11th because you have to have that material lust in order to go for the things that you want. When things are well placed, Jupiter essentially gives them to you, which means, you don't need, it's like somebody who's starving. They're like, oh, I need lots of food, blah, 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 and they're going to eat, when the minute that they get some food, they're going to kind of eat more than they even need to. That's a good metaphor because Jupiter is the karaka of the second and the 11th. So that's a deep metaphor in this case. But this is how the 11th house works, is that you need to have that hunger for that food in a stable, consistent way. Like your body is funny this way. It's funny that Jupiter's a karka for the 11th and the 2nd. There's a connection here because in the natural, healthy dietary regime of every person, you want to eat the right amount of food, decent-ish breakfast, smaller breakfast, big lunch, smaller dinner. You want to have this in the stable way every single day so that eventually, like me, like I'm a bit of a health nut myself, and I've got a very strong metabolism because I eat a lot. People say I eat so much. People are like, wow, but you're so thin. It's like, well, yeah, because my body knows that I'm getting my next meal, so it doesn't need to hold on to the fat. I'm always giving my body the food that it needs on every single meal, so it doesn't need to hold on to food because it's psychologically, energetically knows that there's a rhythm and a pattern that I'm going to keep getting more food, so I don't need to hold on to this stuff. It's the same thing with the 11th house. You need to be in that rhythm. And the 2nd lord in the 11th house, when it works well from the very beginning of life, you want the food, in this case, the 11th house is an accomplishment, is feeling like I'm worthy. Like I can go into a competition and at least do well enough in that competition to feel good about myself. Now, the 2nd lord needs whatever sign it's in or house it's in, it needs that house to feel good. So when you're not winning your stuff, when you don't win the competition, when you don't get the girl or the guy, this person can get emotionally upset when they are not winning like Charlie Sheen. I wonder if he's got this position. This person can get like they feel like they're not likable or accepted by everybody when they aren't winning the competition, when they aren't getting some kind of gains. But when it goes healthy, this person will put their best foot forward, win competitions, win accomplishments, get the gains that they seek at some point in life, somewhere along the way, and they'll feel like, this is the food. I know I don't need to stress about winning the competition because I know I'm respected and revered no matter what. It's like Tiger Woods, the great golfer. He could win 2nd or 3rd place once in a while, but he knows he's won 1st place so many times. He's not stressing out there, Same kind of thing, right? So when this goes well, you've got an upbringing that has allowed you to feel like you can succeed and gain these accomplishments that the 2nd lord seeks. And when you make these accomplishments, when you impress people, when you're well respected and revered in your field, this gives you confidence. Although you're always kind of hungry for more with this placement. But it's at some level, it is that hunger that gives these gains that Parashara is talking about. High in assemblies, esteemed and praised by the people. But that's an extreme. That is really if things are working out very well with this position. So we're about to read. We're going to read from The Art and Science of Vedic Astrology by Ryan Kirksack and Richard Fish. These guys always give 2 opposite readings, and they're completely polar opposites. One will say that this person gains money easily from wealth investments and being connected to the right people. Then one will say somebody's not connected to the right people, and this causes them to be financially unstable and lacking emotional security and all these things. That's the negative side, and there's a positive side. Now, it's weird because they're so opposite, right? But most people are going to be a little bit of both. They're going to have a little bit of affliction, like they've got the 2nd lord in the 11th house, but like there's a planet that's an enemy that's in kind of an aspect and doing a bit of starvation, but they've also got a friend that's kind of opposite them and giving some kind of goodness there. The dignity of the 2nd lord in the 11th really counts as well. If you've got, like, let's say, what I'm thinking of is Gemini. Yeah. So Taurus rising, Gemini rules the 2nd house, and Mercury rules the second house of Gemini. Mercury also rules the fifth house of Virgo. So the second and fifth lord for Taurus rising is Mercury. So if we put Mercury in Pisces, where it's debilitated in the 11th house, it's debilitated there. Let's say it's combust the sun. Let's say Venus isn't there to help it out, and it has its enemy, the moon, is also in trine to Mercury. All these things are going to cause affliction to that second lord in the 11th house, and that's when the childhood is really not supportive of the gains that this person seeks. There's emotional problems, there's things that have taught you not to learn properly, in that case with Mercury, not to use your voice and learn how to get past obstructions and issues. And when you fail, you feel embarrassed, and people probably shame you and cause you to feel that the reason you failed is because you come from bad upbringing, bad parents, bad roots, you weren't raised well. And this causes a feedback loop where you try to succeed and then you fail, and people remind you it's because you're a piece of shit from that family that's a piece of shit. And these kind of loops can really mess with the person. If you're ever stuck in one of these loops, I highly recommend you recognize the astrological signature here, that you're probably going through a little bit of a cleanup incarnation with regards to your second heart lord in the 11th house. And that the good news about the second is that you can always work through it. You can always see what happened to you in your childhood, rectify it, and kind of speak with it with a counselor, with a therapist, work out all the bad feelings that happened there, and reflect on the fact that you still want to be someone who seeks to gain things in life, and you might even want to make money off of the things that you do in your life. But you have emotional and psychological issues from childhood that you need to work through. Talk with somebody about, somebody that you can trust, in order to get those out of the way so that you can put your best foot forward and do your gaining without feeling like it's the end of the world when I fail. It's the end of the world if I challenge myself and I fail. I'm a piece of shit. I've always been a piece of shit, and that stuff starts cycling again. You got to work through it. You can't stop yourself from trying to be the best that you can be and gaining your desires and dreams in life. But this can be a nightmarish thing. You know, it's like going for that big dream. I wanted to be an artist, and I had to quit when I was 25 because I had kids, and now I'm in my mid 40s. I'm having a midlife crisis because I could never get those gains. I never worked this shit out. You got to work through it at some point, you know? It's never too late to reflect on yourself and come back into your power that you are in your soul beyond your upbringing. There's an eternal power in all of us that just takes realization and shedding that which is not conducive to your highest good. I can wrap around that forever, but let's read from our book. This is the ruler of the second in the 11th house. This is us talking about the wealth lord in this house of gains. And let's begin by talking about the positive indications. So what we see is that generally with someone with the second and the 11th, there's someone who gets an understanding of money, and they become wealthy. This is someone who is popular through their voice, through their action, through who they are, their personality. This person's popular in important social circles. Socializing through the 11th house brings this person status increase. Being connected to the right people. This person tends to have an excellent reputation, especially if they are well-bred. That carries into how they carry themselves and how they speak of themselves and how people speak of them. They get praise from the masses. This person always finds opportunities to make money or to get ahead in life. They're a figurehead in their field. This person's politically astute and savvy. They tend to have multiple streams of income, whether that's from, second house can be a land house in a way, although that's really more of a fourth house thing. But this person can have either land or royalties. several businesses going on at once, a very entrepreneurial, enterprising position, the second lord in the 11th, right? This person tends to be ambitious. They fulfill their desires and profit from it. Their family supports them achieving their desires. That's the second house of early childhood, family. Your immediate family is a second house thing, and they tend to support you and carry you while you put a bunch of effort into making the connections with the right people, writing that one paper. You're a starving artist, and your parents and second house folks are supporting you, carrying you, believing in you, while you keep throwing these Hail Marys into these important people's radars, right? This person tends to be an excellent orator. They are inspiring. Their story is inspiring. They know how to speak inspiringly, especially to people in their shared field. Finances are earned for these people through wealth management. That's a second house thing, and just 11th house gains kind of combined together there. This person uses money to make money, make more money. I'm making my money, make me more money. This is like investing in money, but also just investing, having money and investing it in the right way so that it makes them more money. Investing, speculative, stocks, real estate, managing businesses, etc. Remember, this is all when things are going well with the second lord in the 11th. This person can be involved in publishing. Writing does relate to the voice. Writing is a combination of the second and third house, and in the 11th, your writing or your voice or your videos, your YouTube, whatever it is you do, kind of gets out there. This person's supported by influential people. Their possessions appreciate in value, and they have a good taste in food and a good taste in general. The second and the 11th person especially comes from early auspices in their childhood of being able to explore all their tastes that they want, exploring what dad likes and this family likes, my buddy's family, and seeing the highest value from all these different influences on TV of the high life. And they see it and they develop a taste for these high life kinds of things. And if things are going well for them, again, it's the second house security of me feeling worthy of myself by having this high life. And this can be the kind of person, if you've ever seen Rich Dad, Poor Dad. There's the poor dad who said, I'm poor and I've always been poor. But then there's the dad, his buddy, whose father considers himself a rich man. And even when I'm not wealthy yet, but richness comes to me. This 2nd and the 11th placed well can have this kind of rich dad mentality, this rich person mentality. So when things go awry with the 2nd and the 11th, and there's afflictions to the 2nd house or the 11th house or their lords, this will especially be painful if there's important Rahu, Ketu, Amakarika, Swamsha, rising sign lord involved in any of this. These are the negative things that can happen with it. I've already talked about it a lot. But here's some specifics. This person can be a social climber, which means they're kind of climbing through people socially to get lots of friends. Like they're kind of using people to get higher up, right? Not actually making friends with them. This person can have a poor understanding of politics, and that can get them into trouble. The person makes money any way they can, kind of not caring about how. They're not concerned with how they make their money as long as they're making that bread, that skrilla. And this can cause them to get into seedy, less than ethical things just to make that skrilla, money laundering, crime, so that they can take that money and as a means to an end, I'll go and put a little bit of it into charity and then that'll make me feel better about it and then keep doing it. This person can lose money due to chronic illness of their partner. That's an interesting one. I'd be curious what kind of Bhava, what's causing that. It's interesting that the 11th is opposite the 5th, and usually the 11th and the 5th being the opposites can be ugly with each other, right? Due to partnerships. That's interesting. But, let's keep going. This person abuses their social power for financial gain. They can kind of be rough around friendships just to, they use their friendships and associations to get them higher in life because they feel they need to do that because they lacked it when they were younger. They might have felt like a runt when they were young, and this causes this kind of behavior. Financial problems with older siblings or influential people, big important people who you tie your money up with. And again, if you are a solid person in yourself, you can smell good breeding in other people, and you won't get involved with people who are seedy, who could screw you over in the end, who don't seem all that solid. But for someone with the second lord in the 11th who doesn't come from good upbringing, has never seen a good role model, never seen positive, virtuous qualities in people, someone could come along and say, hey man, you want to make some money? And the person doesn't see a problem. Yeah, I want to make some money. Let's do it. And then they get wrapped up with influential people, powerful people who could just be using them. And their elder brother tends to be the first example of this. The elder brother relates to the 11th house. This person's out of touch with the masses. Financial opportunities never seem to pan out for them. They spend too much money trying to achieve dreams and impress others, usually out of a compensation. This person has poor earning capacity. They spend on lost causes and depreciating items. Things that they're emotionally connected to, that there's nostalgia there from the second house. Things that depreciate over time and are just a waste, like an emotional waste, a compensation coming from trying to say I got this thing, trying to financially compensate for emotional lack that comes from deeper seated issues, right? So again, anything that you're ever feeling, if you're ever feeling anything like this is happening to you, the best thing to do is not to get mad at astrology or your soul or your karma. Try to ask, why is my soul cleaning up this karma in this way, and how can I reflect on that constructively? Go with the flow. Don't take whatever happened to me in my childhood personally. Work through it with a therapist and make the best. Make some lemonade out of the lemons that God gave me. Make the best out of my situation. Especially when it comes to being angry that you haven't achieved anything yet, that you haven't achieved something yet. You might not ever achieve what you think you're going to achieve, but when you look back, you'll probably find that no matter what conditions you are, if you came out of difficult circumstances, if you use your mind, you can reduce that angst, that hunger, let go of the compensation, find some peace in your own second house, nature, in your own relationships, in friendship, in the people in your family, make peace with them. You'll find you'll get less of this edge, and that your whole financial reality becomes less cloudy, less lustful, less coming from that emotional compensation edge, right? And then you'll look back and find, even though you'll never probably feel as satisfied as you'd like to, you'll probably look back and say, I did pretty good with what I had to work with. Now, the example we have here, Harrison Ford, is a shining example of a positive second lord in the 11th house. It's just nothing too crazy significant going on here. The second lord, he's a Libra rising. The second lord, Scorpio, Mars. The second lord of Scorpio being Mars, is with Chiron and Pluto here in the 11th house of Leo. That little Plutonian Pluto in the 11th house is kind of being probably burned a little bit by this malefic Mars. But ultimately that malefic Mars is delighted by the sun, by Leo here. It's a very interesting bowl chart all contained up here. Like really all of the planets are contained within 3 signs. Crazy. That's an insane chart. And they're all pretty good placements. Wow. Wow. Harrison Ford is a beast. This 11th house has no afflictions really going on here. So we know Harrison Ford, he's highly regarded, highly esteemed in his field as an actor. He's one of those legend epic guys who was in Star Wars and everything, Indiana Jones, everything he did and touched turned into gold because he was with the right people, right? So that's an example of the 2nd Lord and the 11th going well. Hope you guys enjoyed this. My name's Dustin Cormier. Thanks so much for watching.